Well, that was fun. And why can't music be fun? It's supposed to be fun. Right? The stories behind it, the music that makes you think about it. Anybody hear the jazz influences, the blues influences? Uniquely American flavor to that piece as opposed to, say, Inglesino, which we heard at the beginning, which had more of an Italian flavor. Well, when we talk legends, is there truly any greater legend to America than our former president, Abraham Lincoln? And this piece was composed to describe him, but using his own words. And Lincoln Portrait, which is also known as A Lincoln Portrait, is a 1942 orchestral work originally, written by famous American composer Aaron Copland. Anybody recognize the name? Aaron Copland, yes? Good, go look up, good stuff. The work involves a full orchestra, or in this case band, with particular emphasis on the brass section for climatic moments. The work is narrated with the reading of excerpts of Abraham Lincoln's great documents, including the Gettysburg Address. An orchestra usually invites a prominent person, to be a narrator. Now, there's all kinds of stories that Abraham Lincoln was very, very honest, right? Honest Abe, everybody remembers that? Well, I can tell you there was one time that I've researched and found in my stories that Abraham Lincoln was not honest. He was not. And it's part of the reason he lived into his presidency. Anybody know the time? Any historians? No? Okay, well, here's a story for you. Abraham, Honest Abe, his wife came downstairs in a new dress and said, "Honey, do I look fat in this?" And Honest Abe said, "No, dear." So he lived to be our president. And in the history of this piece, conductor Andre Castellanos commissioned Copland to write a musical portrait of an eminent American for the New York Philharmonic. Copland chose President Abraham Lincoln and used materials from speeches and letters of Lincoln, as well as original folk songs of the period, including Camptown Races and On Springfield Mountain, which you'll hear. Copland finished Lincoln Portrait in April of 1942. The first performance was by the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra on May 14th, 1942, with William Adams as the narrator. Now, believe it or not, here's another legend for you. This piece was scheduled to be played at the 1953 inauguration of Dwight D. Eisenhower. But by that point, Copland's political views had gotten him in trouble, and Eisenhower wanted it pulled. So sometimes that can even happen to music. But is there any better way to describe a man than in his own words? And for us, we'd like to invite a prominent individual to provide the words of President Lincoln. And we'd like to invite, at partway through the piece, as you'll see, the voice of the Hanover Symphony, Dr. James Sodt, will be joining us. Thank you, sir. And to give you a little bit of a story behind, or how I see this piece, you'll notice Abraham Lincoln kind of emerging from the mists of history and time. Then you'll hear the rough times of his presidency in during the Civil War. Then you'll hear his own address, and then you hear his triumphant, lasting legacy that he left on America. So this is a Lincoln Portrait.
said, fellow citizens, we cannot escape history. We of this Congress and this administration will be remembered in spite of ourselves. No personal significance or insignificance can spare one or another of us. The fiery trial through which we pass will light us down in honor or dishonor to the latest generation. We, even we here, hold what he said. The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise to the occasion. As our case is new, so must we think anew and act anew. We must disenthrall ourselves, and then we shall save our country. This is what he said. This is what he said. It is the eternal struggle between these two principles, right and wrong, throughout the world. It is the same spirit that says, you toil and work and earn bread, and I'll eat it, no matter in what shape it comes. Whether from the mouth of a king who seeks to bestride the people of his own nation and live by the fruit of their labor, or from one race of men as an apology for enslaving another race. It is the same tyrannical principle. This is what he said. This is what he said. As I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master. This expresses my idea of democracy. Whatever differs from this, to the extent of that difference, is no democracy. This is what he said. This is what he said. From these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. That is what he said. That is what Abraham Lincoln